There's a kind of tiredness that no amount of sleep can fix. It lingers in your chest, not your muscles. It speaks in sighs, not symptoms. And maybe, quietly, you felt it too, a weight that doesn't belong to your body, but to something deeper. This exhaustion isn't a failure. It's a message. What if the fatigue you carry has nothing to do with your physical form? What if it's the echo of a program silent, invisible, that's been running inside you for years? Not malicious, just inherited. A set of beliefs and patterns passed down from a world that forgot how to rest. You were never meant to keep pushing through it. You were meant to remember something. This isn't a lesson to learn. It's a memory to retrieve. A code written within you long before you were taught to doubt it. A rhythm of life that renews rather than depletes. A way of being that begins, not in effort but in awareness. So breathe. Not to fix anything, but to feel. That breath. It's the first key. And this is your invitation, not to change, but to awaken. Not to fight, but to remember. You wake up and reach for your phone. Before your feet touch the ground, your eyes are already scrolling. Notifications, messages, updates all flooding in, all urgent. But none of it begins from you. It feels like life, but it's really momentum. There is a rhythm that surrounds you. It doesn't scream. It whispers, gently shaping what you think, feel, and choose. It tells you what success should look like, what beauty is, what's worth your time, your energy, your soul. You believe you're free, but most days you're just reacting, responding, performing. This is the modern matrix, not a science fiction fantasy, but a soft, seamless loop of distractions wrapped in the comfort of routine. It's in your social feed, your endless to-do list, the pressure to do more, be more, prove more. And slowly, it separates you from yourself. You weren't born this way. You were born curious, quiet, full of light. But the world moves fast, and somewhere along the way, you started matching its speed. You learned to ignore the stillness within because no one taught you that peace is your original language. The matrix is not an enemy to fight. It is simply a forgetting. And awakening begins not with struggle, but with noticing. Noticing when your body is doing one thing, but your heart is silent. Noticing the space between your thoughts where your truest voice still lives. It might come in small moments, when you pause before replying, when you question why something matters so much, when you catch yourself holding your breath and choose to exhale fully. And in that breath, a doorway opens. This isn't about changing the world overnight. It's about changing your relationship to it. When you begin to see the pattern, it loses its grip. When you stop judging your pace, you reclaim your rhythm. And that rhythm, it comes from the quiet, not the noise. Your life is not a race to be won. It's a conversation to be listened to. Each time you step out of the loop, even for a breath, you soften the matrix's hold. You begin remembering what's always been yours. Presence, clarity, the right to choose from your own truth. And here's the most radical part: you don't have to destroy anything to be free. You only need to see. And seeing begins now with you, right here. So pause, take one slow breath. Not because you have to, but because you can. Welcome back. There are moments when you feel nothing. Not sadness, not anger. Just a quiet, persistent sense of being disconnected, like standing in a crowded room but feeling invisible. You might call it loneliness, burnout, or simply being lost. But what if this emptiness isn't something to fix, but something to listen to? We're taught to fear the void, to fill it. With noise, with tasks, with scrolling, with anything that keeps us from facing what's underneath. But the space inside you, that silent, hollow feeling, isn't wrong. It's not a flaw. It's a doorway. Emptiness is often the first sign that something real is trying to reach you. It comes when the life you've built no longer matches the truth of who you are. It arrives when the roles you've played start to feel too tight, when your soul wants to breathe again. The beauty of this calling is that it doesn't shout. It waits. It waits for you to pause, to stop trying to be productive, impressive, invincible, to stop pretending you don't feel the ache. And when you do, when you finally sit with the silence instead of pushing it away, you begin to hear something else. Something softer, like a whisper at the center of your chest. Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe. Imagine a light in the space behind your sternum. Not blazing, not dramatic. Just a gentle glow, steady, quiet, alive. That is you. Not your thoughts, not your history, not your fears. Just the quiet presence that has always been there, waiting. This is not about escaping life. It's about remembering it. Remembering that you are more than what you do, more than what others expect of you, more than the performance of being okay. In the world's noise, silence feels like a void. But in truth, it is fullness. It is where intuition lives, where clarity rises, where healing begins not because you tried harder, but because you finally let go. The next time you feel empty, don't rush to fill it. Sit with it. Breathe with it. Let it stretch across your ribs and touch the quiet corners of your being. Let it speak. It's not here to hurt you. It's here to guide you back to something true. You are not broken. You are becoming. And the emptiness you fear, it's just the space you've cleared for your soul to return home. Welcome the quiet. It knows the way. Not everything you need to know comes from outside of you. Some truths don't come in books or from gurus or through loud declarations. They come like a memory, soft, unexplainable, and familiar. You've had moments like this, when a thought crossed your mind that didn't feel new but ancient. When a symbol, a word, a sound seemed to stir something deeper than thought. That stirring, it's not coincidence. It's remembrance. The ancients knew this. Thoth, Hermes, Socrates, they weren't offering knowledge to be worshipped. They were leaving breadcrumbs, clues, echoes of a wisdom you were never truly separated from. They spoke in symbols and silence because they knew the real teaching happens not through instruction, but through recognition. Every time your heart feels drawn to something you don't fully understand, a pull toward the stars, an image that lingers in your dreams, a phrase that won't leave your mind, that's not randomness. That's the ancient part of you reaching forward. It's you remembering. This wisdom isn't hidden in some distant land. It's not locked in a forgotten scroll. It's within you in the way you instinctively know when something feels off or sacred or true. It shows up in your empathy, your longing, your stillness. You don't need to be initiated. You already were the moment you began listening. And yes, there are names: Thoth, the keeper of balance; Hermes, the messenger between worlds. But they're not distant figures. They are aspects of consciousness that live within all of us. They're symbols like the Ankh, the caduceus, the eye aren't decorations. They're keys. Keys to unlock what you already hold. You've probably felt it. In the quiet moments. When logic steps aside and a deep knowing takes its place. When you suddenly know something but can't explain how. That's ancient wisdom, not taught but remembered. So instead of searching harder, soften. Listen. Remember. Let yourself be guided not by the loud, but by the familiar whisper in your bones. The one that tells you you've always known. The path isn't about learning something new. It's about becoming still enough to feel what's always been here waiting. Imagine for a moment that every emotion you've ever labeled, negative, fear, anger, exhaustion, doubt, is not a problem to solve, but a raw material. And what if your mind, when still and aware, could act as a kind of alchemical fire? not to burn it all away, but to transmute it into something light, vital, and alive. This is mental alchemy. Not a metaphor, not a fantasy, but a real, repeatable process that begins not with trying to feel better, but with learning to feel fully. You see, most of us resist what we don't want to feel. We tighten, we fight it, we push it down or dress it up. But in doing so, we also trap energy, and that trapped energy, over time, becomes fatigue, tension, numbness. Mental alchemy invites a different approach. It doesn't ask you to pretend. It doesn't demand you to be positive all the time. Instead, it offers you the power to sit with what is without resistance, to breathe through fear without judging it, to witness anger without becoming it, to hold space for sadness until it softens into wisdom. The transformation begins with awareness. When you notice a heavy thought, "I'm not good enough," "I'll never change," "I'm tired of pretending," pause. Feel where that thought lives in your body. Is it a tightness in your chest, a heaviness in your gut, a buzzing behind your eyes? Now breathe, not to get rid of it, but to create space around it. Inhale into that tightness, not away from it. Imagine your breath as light entering that place, not to fight, but to hold, like warm hands around something fragile. As you breathe, you may notice the sensation shift. It might soften or stretch or even speak in the form of a new insight or a sudden calm. This is not repression. It's not distraction. This is alchemy. The fear you thought would drown you becomes fuel. The sadness that weighed you down becomes depth. The resistance becomes flow. Mental alchemy is not about controlling your thoughts. It's about relating to them in a new way from stillness, not survival. It's about remembering that every emotion carries a message, and every message, when truly heard, leaves behind clarity. You are not your feelings. You are the space that can transform them. And that space, vast, quiet, alive, is where your real energy lives. Not the kind you borrow from coffee or adrenaline, but the kind that rises when you stop fighting yourself and begin listening. So next time you feel heavy, don't run. Breathe, welcome it. Let your inner fire do what it was made to do. Turn the weight of thought into the light of awareness. You are the alchemist you always have been. Some symbols don't just represent something, they are something. They vibrate, they unlock, they remember. The Ankh is one of those symbols. Known as the key of life, its shape has endured through ages, not because of religion, but because of resonance. When you look at it, the loop, the arms, the base, something stirs in the quietest part of your intuition. That stirring isn't imagination. It's recognition. But what if the Ankh isn't just something to look at? What if it's alive inside of you, not as a relic, but as a subtle architecture, a living map? Try this. Close your eyes. Bring your awareness to the center of your chest. Take a slow breath, not just in your lungs, but in your heart space. Now gently picture the Ankh not flat, not static, but spinning. The loop like a soft halo, the arms extending sideways like breath itself, and the stem reaching downward, rooting your energy. Don't analyze it, just see it. Let it glow. Let it spin slowly, as if responding to your breath. As it moves, feel the air shift around you. The space within your chest begins to open, not dramatically, but gently, like petals responding to morning light. The Ankh doesn't give you power. It reminds you of what was never lost. Its geometry echoes the sacred structure of your own energy field. It aligns, it harmonizes. And when you visualize it with presence, it becomes a living gate, not to escape life, but to enter it fully. Some say the Ankh represents life and death. Others see it as the union of masculine and feminine, earth and sky. But beyond all that, it's a tuning fork for your subtle body. It opens channels where energy had grown still. It hums in harmony with your essence. You don't need to believe in the Ankh. You only need to meet it, not with the mind, but with breath, with body, with awareness. The more often you return to that inner image, the Ankh spinning in your heart, the more natural it becomes. And over time, you may begin to feel something subtle yet unmistakable, your energy field breathing with you, expanding, softening, remembering. This isn't magic in the fantasy sense, it's inner science, a deeper language of feeling, rhythm, and symbol. And in that language, the Ankh is a word your soul already knows. So next time you feel disconnected or low, don't rush to fix it. Instead, return to your breath, to your heart, to the ancient symbol that has never truly left you. Let the Ankh open what you forgot was closed. Let it speak not to your mind, but to your light. Awakening is not a single spark. It's a flame one you must tend to, gently, day after day. And in this modern world of constant noise and movement, it's not the awakening that's hard, it's staying awake. There will be mornings when you feel deeply present. When the light seems softer, your breath fuller, your choices more aligned. But then the world comes in. The headlines, the schedules, the buzzing notifications. And just like that, the flame flickers. This isn't failure. It's the rhythm of being human. And like any rhythm, you can return to it again and again. Staying spiritually awake doesn't require grand rituals. It lives in small moments. Like when you touch a sacred object, a stone, a symbol, even a leaf, and let it remind you of something quiet and sacred within. Or when you close your eyes in the middle of a busy room, just to feel your breath again. The world won't stop being loud, but your relationship to the noise can change. You begin to notice the tension in your shoulders when you scroll too long, the way your heart beats faster after certain conversations. These are not problems to fix, but invitations to return. Return not with effort, but with softness, like an exhale, like water finding its way back to the ocean. Spiritual presence is not about perfection, it's about rhythm. You will drift. That's okay. What matters is your choice to come back not just once, but over and over, like the tide kissing the shore. And every time you return, it gets a little easier. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. Because now, you carry within you a compass not outside, not on your screen, but in your breath, your body, your being. So let the world be noisy. Let the schedules run. But let there be a part of you small at first that stays quietly awake. The part that knows how to listen inward, how to feel light in the center of your chest, how to pause just long enough to remember who you are. You don't need to escape the world to be awake. You just need to keep coming back to yourself. Gently, again and again. There's a rhythm the world has forgotten, one that doesn't rush or shout, but moves like breath, like the rising and falling of tides. This is the sacred cycle of inner regeneration, and it lives inside you. It begins not with a push, but with stillness, with observation. When you simply pause even just for a heartbeat and begin to see yourself with soft eyes, you notice the habits that drain you, the patterns that repeat, the stories you tell yourself that were never really yours. This is the first gate, awareness, not to judge, not to fix, just to see. Then comes the activation, not dramatic, not loud. Like the quiet bloom of a flower at dawn, something stirs within. It may come as a sudden insight, a feeling in your chest, a knowing that doesn't need proof. This is your energy realigning your essence, beginning to stretch awake. And finally, the conscious action. This is not about doing more, It's about doing differently, choosing the path that feels aligned even if it's slower, saying no without guilt, saying yes from your core, not your conditioning. When these three forces, awareness, activation, and aligned action, move together, something beautiful happens. You begin to regenerate from within, not like a battery being recharged, but like a tree returning to bloom after winter. Not because it's forced to, but because that's its nature. And the same is true for you. This cycle isn't linear. Some days you'll feel fully alive, other days you'll forget. But forgetting isn't failure, it's simply a return to the first step. Observe, awaken, align. Let yourself move through this spiral over and over. Each time, you'll go a little deeper. Each time, you'll feel a little more like yourself. Not the version shaped by expectations or pressure, but the one that breathes quietly beneath it, all the version of you that remembers how to flow, how to rest, how to rise when it's time. You don't need to reinvent yourself. You don't need to reach some imagined higher version. You are not a project. You are a process. A living field of energy that knows how to heal, how to remember, how to return. So let this be your rhythm. Observe, awaken, align, and know. Every time you do, you're not just surviving this life, you're regenerating it from the inside out. If any part of you stirred during this journey, even just a breath's worth, that is enough. You don't need to believe everything. You don't need to understand it all. The invitation is simpler than that. Notice what moved inside you. The light within you has never been lost. Only quiet, only waiting. Not for you to change, but for you to pause, to listen, to return. This is not an end. It's a beginning. A soft turning toward the life beneath the noise. Toward slow mornings, honest breaths, gentle rituals that nourish you. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to remember. And if you feel ready, even just a little, let that light speak again in the way you walk, the way you choose, the way you simply be. We'll be here, whispering with you, one breath at a time.